Count it all joy, Charles is back online. The Equally Yoked Show. Get yoked for free. Count it all joy, Charles is back online. The Equally Yoked Show. Get yoked for free.
Welcome back to the podcast. This is the Equally Yoked Show. I'm so glad to have you back here once again as we go on to talk about just a couple of things. We do want to start off with, of course, what's going to happen with this Zohran Mamdani, him leading the race in New York. Of course, Prop 50, what Gavin Newsom is doing to push out a message and narrative that this is some kind of response or retaliation of what Texas is doing when it comes to gerrymandering. Now, I just want to say thank you for those who are joining in just at this moment. Jerry, you're the first to be here saying, hey, glad you came on. I was bored as all get out. Yeah, you know, there's so much stuff happening just in this Sunday alone, and we are going through a plethora of things. Probably not to the fullest extent that we generally do on this podcast, but otherwise we're covering some stuff that I kind of just wanted to talk about because we're seeing a major shift happen in America, and this major shift could be for a sort of a bad turn that America is making. Bad turn. You say, but what is going on in Texas? I am not located in Texas, but otherwise, did I mention Texas? I don't think I did. I'm not exactly sure. But what's going on in New York? What's going on in California? What is going on around the world? We're seeing what seems to look like something that reminded me of the World Economic Forum and one of their videos where they make 8 predictions by 2030. If you guys remember this was something that went viral around the time talking about, and it looks like I mentioned Texas. I guess there was a mistake on my part. I thought I don't realize I mentioned Texas. But anyway, California and New York, these are the two. Texas is got its own set of deals, and at some point we'll have to cover. Oh, yes, I mentioned Texas because of the gerrymandering that is happening in the sense that in the middle of, just before midterms, what they're doing is they are. That's funny how that slipped my mind. They are trying to do redistricting in Texas so that they can. There's a whole thing that we're going to go into in just a moment concerning Prop 50 and Gavin Newsom using that as a sort of retaliatory redistricting drawing of new maps to give voters and something that Arnold Schwarzenegger he said in an X post, which was he was actually on an interview, not an X post, but he said something pretty interesting concerning the what's happening when you start to redistrict, or at least what you're seeing in what California is. I'm just trying to find that for you. Hopefully I can find it. I could probably easily find it on YouTube if just by a quick search. So yeah. So as we get going here, we're going to start to ease into these conversations. I do want to show something concerning this Prop 50, concerning what Arnold says. And hopefully we can, it's going to be on the CNN interview. And he has been talking, and he's been very vocal about this. And if you know that Arnold Schwarzenegger used to run for I think he was California governor at one point. I forget exactly when. This was before my time, but otherwise, let me go ahead and I'm going to show you a video here. This is from the World Economic Forum, and what you're going to see here is going to be very interesting because this is very reminiscent of the policies, of some of the policies that are being spoken of by the Democrat Party, by Zohran Mamdani, with these grocery stores and the likes. And so we're going to be going over just a couple of these things so that we can get a better idea. But also too, he also was saving this, maybe this huge announcement of Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, because everybody was saying he doesn't even have the backing of the governor. She hasn't mentioned anything up until finally we see this new event called New York is Not for Sale. This huge put together with AOC, with Bernie Sanders being the three main, and Kathy Hochul being the three main speakers before Zohran gets on. And of course, this was a whole show to lead people like what we're leading up to the final show, the final showdown. And it's going to be really, really interesting what we see happening in November when it comes to the New York mayoral race. It will most certainly change the tide for a lot of different reasons, but let's go ahead and get started with this video. There's not going to be audio, but I will begin to commentate on it because this is very important. Okay, so it says 8 predictions for the world in 2030. This is the first one. Okay, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Now, to further this point, it talks about whatever you want, you'll rent and it will be delivered by drone. Now, there has been some conversation about, of course, Zohran Mamdani claiming that he is a democratic socialist. But we also have to remember that socialism, when he's talking about private properties, or rather the grocery stores that are going to be essentially, they're not going to be privately funded, but rather it's under socialism. So the key, the distinction between communism and socialism, communism is abolishing private property in total. Okay, but socialism is, the private property is not fully abolished, but it's very limited. But key distinctions is that major industries like resources, energy, healthcare, transportation are typically publicly owned and collectively managed. Exactly. Rent, food. It's probably based on items that are non-perishable. So whatever it means, you'll rent. They don't really go into this in detail. I think in their original, which I can't find it, and it might be somewhere deep in the internet, but they don't go in detail as to, you own nothing and you'll be happy. But their agendas for 2030 really begin to line up with what the democratic mindset is behind America. And rightly said in the comments, if you want socialism, go to a socialist country. Go to Cuba. Go to Venezuela. And see how they're working it out over there. So you own nothing, you'll be happy. Whatever you want, you'll rent. It'll be delivered by drone. So if you want, Banana Republic started to do this thing where you can actually rent clothes. You pay a subscription, you rent clothes, they send you a box and you return it back when you're all done. I forget what it was called, but Banana Republic was starting to introduce this years ago. This was years ago, mind you. So we continue on with their wonderful predictions. The second one being that the US won't be the world's leading superpower. As of today, the US is the leading superpower. Under Biden, he moved us to a position where the US was no longer the leading superpower. We were the laughingstock of the nations. They knew the incompetency of Biden. We continue on here that it says a handful of countries will dominate rather than just the US. But what's interesting about saying that a handful of nations will dominate, what do we see happen in the book of Revelation? There are 10 kings that rule a specific region, and out of those 10 kings, one rises, knocks out 3, and he becomes the prominent voice, the prominent one in this position. It says the little horn will rise and 3 will come down. But the rest of the nations will give all their power to this little horn because he speaks great things in the sense that he is a great speaker, excellent speaker. He has ideas to solve the world's problems. People are going to willingly hand their power over to him. This is, of course, according to the book of Revelation and the book of Daniel. You can read these in these visions that Daniel has. You can read these visions in the book of Revelation. Then it goes on to say here, you won't die waiting for an organ donor, that they'll just print organs. It says you'll eat much less meat, an occasional treat, not a staple. It says for the good of the environment and for our health. There was a lot of people in the World Economic Forum talking about it being on this type of diet that is literally not even a meat-eating diet. However, it's more like eating grasshoppers. I wish I had the clips for you. I edited this video for my last pastor where we went over a lot of the World Economic Forum, crazy clips from interviews of the World Economic Forum leaders that were gathering in Davos because they were sharing their ideas on how to make the world, fall in line with this 2030 agenda. And this was all, of course, during the Biden administration, where we were really beginning to fulfill the prophecies laid out by the World Economic Forum as to what their goals are for 2030. A lot of those goals have somewhat shifted. Some of these nations and countries are still aligning themselves with this goal. Gavin Newsom and many others, they have this sustainable goal or this global 2030 point plan, whatever, 10-point plan, whatever the case is. They have this in various different states, in various different countries. And it's almost essentially laid out here in these 8 different points. So instead of eating meat, we're going to be eating grasshoppers, fake meat, lab-grown meat. It says 1 billion people will be displaced by climate change. I mean, we're 4 years away and we still see no evidence of people being displaced by climate change. Then it goes on to say, we will have done a better job at welcoming and integrating refugees. But we all know what happened in the Biden administration. They let the floodgates open and everybody came in. It was no longer about refugees. It was no longer, this is happening in the UK. This is happening in many different, this was happening in Japan. You have weak borders, you don't have a country. But the Biden administration did a really awesome job at welcoming in everybody. Now we have polluters that will have to pay to emit carbon dioxide. They begin to have a carbon footprint. This will be tracked. This will be monitored. And you have to pay fees for this. But let's forget about all those that fly into Davos, Switzerland, who, when they all fly in there, they make just about the same carbon emissions. The same carbon that is emitted into Davos, Switzerland is about the same on one singular day, is about the same that is emitted during an entire year. They could fly their private planes. It says there will be a global price on carbon. This will help make fossil fuels history. You could be preparing to go to Mars. We're already seeing that. It's a scientist that is by Elon Musk trying to do, whatever it is. And by the way, public knowledge, thank you so much. You sent a Gamer Ghost for 900 joules. I appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much. Brother, sister, I'm not sure if you're a man or a woman, but I appreciate your gift. God bless you. God bless you. Scientists will have worked out how to keep you healthy in space. Then start of a journey to find alien life. Okay. How many times has it been where we are searching for alien life and yet nothing comes up? Even with all of these, oh, I see your picture here. God bless you. Even with all of these testimonies in Congress about UFOs and trying to really understand all of this information that has been gathered by intelligence, military intelligence, and others, we still have no sign of alien life. Why is that? All this money being funded into understanding alien life and understanding what exactly is out there, and yet nothing. They can't find a single thing. Money being wasted. Scripture tells us, literally, we're the only beings here on Earth. Literally. Nothing else created on other planets, nothing else living on other planets. Now, there may be planets that could be technically inhabitable, possibly. But these are only speculations as to what they can see from Earth, what they can observe from a telescope. Western values will have been tested to the breaking point. The screen that I just stopped at is been some type of the conversation, or it has been in the mix of this conversation for, a couple of weeks now at this point. We've been seeing a rise of culture clashing. Culture clashing from Islam. We're seeing Zohran Mamdani, what he's doing. We're seeing what's happening in Minnesota. We're seeing what's happening globally and even the West in the UK. Kazoo Builder, your comment saying, is this a WEF breakdown? No, this is not this is tying into what we're going to see Zohran Mamdani talk about for a moment about grocery stores. We're almost done here. Checks and balances that underpin our democracies must not be forgotten. By the way, Spider Venom, I think it's Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to go back into to a post of a video that I've shared on this live stream before to see exactly if that's the state that I'm talking about. But checks and balances that underpin our democracies must not be forgotten. Okay, and that's it. That's it. So as we go on to Zohran Mamdani, because his ideas may sound great, but how great will they actually be if all of this comes into fruition? If he is successful in his mayoral candidacy, if he's successful in winning, we're going to start to see maybe some of his ideas being implemented. Trump has said, you still got to go through you still got to go through me, essentially. I'm paraphrasing. And by the way, a comment here, Kazoo Builder, you say, why do people always talk about our democracy? The U.S. has always been a republic. This has been literally the greatest. This is the American experiment. An experiment that has been successful, absolutely successful in the last 250 years, coming up on 250 years. Successful. But every other type of regime, every other type of monarchy, every other type of kingdom, whatever, you name it. Benjamin Franklin, I believe it's him who said, if this is a democracy, if we can keep, this is a democracy, this is a republic, if we can keep it. This is a republic if we can keep it. Democracy is ran by a group of close, tight-knit leaders that want to rule over the people. They want to have all the power to themselves. We saw this being executed during the Biden administration. The amount of power that they utilized during the last 4 years was unprecedented. Silencing conservative voices, preventing any type of power within the House, within the Senate. They had total and complete power, and they were moving legislation along as quickly as they wanted to. This is Zohran Mamdani.
Stores. I've put forward a proposal for a pilot of one grocery store in each borough. These are 5 grocery stores that would cost $60 million in a city budget of more than $113 billion.
And by the way, you say Zohran is an American. He's an American from Uganda. In Uganda, this is something that Bill Mayer pointed out. Bill Mayer has been getting a lot more into this type of conversation. But Bill Mayer was talking about that Uganda has I think I'd just have to play the clip for you. Maybe I have it saved for you, so I'm not going to take his words out of context. But here we go.
And ultimately, the reason that we are so excited by them is we've seen that they've worked in Kansas. We've seen that when a feasibility study was done in Chicago, it was shown to be something that was not only feasible, but pressing and urgent in an urban setting. And finally, it cost less than half of what the city's already set to spend on subsidizing corporate supermarkets without any guarantee of cheaper prices, any guarantee of collective bargaining agreements, or that they accept SNAP or WIC.
Well, you take me to my next question about grocery stores. Some executives, including one of the top grocery stores owners, billionaires, threatening to shut down his supermarket in the city. John Castamatidis, who runs Gristedes grocery chain, you're probably very familiar with him. He said this on Election Day, quote, "If the city of New York is going socialist, I will definitely close or sell or move or franchise the Gristedes locations." In order to run New York City successfully as mayor, do you not need the support of a billionaire businessman like John Catsimatidis?
I don't know if I need his support specifically, but I want to make clear that my vision for this city is a vision for every single New Yorker, including business leaders across the city. And the reason I say that is that my proposals, even the ones to increase the top corporate tax rate of New York to match that of New Jersey, are ones that would also benefit those business leaders. Because when I have conversations with them, what I also hear is just how expensive this city is preventing them from attracting and retaining the talent they need to grow their business. And ultimately, I'm looking forward to having those meetings, having those sit-downs to make clear why this vision would benefit all.
We went on your website and realized there's a policy proposal that says your plan, and I'm going to quote it for folks, is to shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods. Explain why you are bringing race into your tax proposal.
That is just a description of what we see right now. It's not driven by race. It's more of an assessment of what neighborhoods are being undertaxed versus overtaxed.
But the left is always bringing race into the picture. Always. This is one of their playbooks. This is a part of one of their playbooks. So I do want to bring in the video that I told you of Bill Mayer talking about Zohran Mamdani. This is what he has to say.
I mean, the issue now that Andrew Cuomo is bringing up in New York is that he is a Ugandan citizen. Uganda is a country where they kill homosexuals.
So somebody who is a dual citizen can't be mayor of New York, or?
I would renounce, if I was the dual citizen with a country whose policy, the government policy, was we kill homosexuals, yeah, I would renounce that citizenship. I don't, and to not to, and he also.
I think that is buying into a fear. I think that is buying into a fear framework that is not
fear
good.
of killing homosexuals.
It's not good for the country. It's not good for the country.
You shouldn't be afraid
and I think
of that.
I think the way that Cuomo is closing out this race and really race baiting and really leaning in on what if you were mayor and something like that.
No, you know what? Just because
I don't think
it's
that's good for the country.
I understand, but just because something is done by people in Africa doesn't mean it's always okay. I mean.
Now, is that something that Mamdani should renounce? Because he seems to have these ideas, as I mentioned, as the video that we're going over, and it seems like he has these great ideas because he's put them into this. He's done these. They've done these little trials, and they seem to be working. They seem to be, this is the sort of the way that he's able to fish people, to reel people in. We've done trials and they've been very successful. People are fleeing from New York. Of course, it's still the fact that there's no good leaders in New York. New York can be turned around real easy. But we've seen time and time again when cities like California, when cities like New York are against somebody like Trump, who is antithetical to their views, their political views, their policies, even their own policies cause destruction within their own state, creating cities to be sanctuary cities, or making their cities sanctuary cities, removing Americans' kids out of schools so that we can make room for those who are coming through the border. This was all happening under the Biden administration.
We've seen time and again that this is a property tax system that is inequitable. It's one that actually Eric Adams ran on saying that he would change in the first 100 days. He's since sought to defend it and lost at every juncture in court.
And I understand you're saying we're simply describing the types of neighborhoods that would see these increase in taxes. And yet, by invoking race, do you run the risk of potentially alienating key constituents?
I think I'm just naming things as they are. And ultimately, the thing that motivates me in this is to create a system of fairness. It is not to work backwards from a racial assessment of neighborhoods or our city. Rather, it's to ensure that we actually have an equal playing field. And right now, what we see with the property tax system is one that is overtaxing a number of New Yorkers and undertaxing others, and an inability of political will to resolve that.
So no plans to change that language on your website?
The focus here is to actually ensure a fair property tax system, and that the use of that language is just an assessment of the neighborhood.
All right. You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
But what does he exactly want to do? What does he want to do with the fact that we want to make, that he doesn't believe that we should have any billionaires? That they shouldn't be entitled to the money that they made by working hard, building their businesses on a capitalist society. They hire people, they hire employees, whether that be of course, a lot of them, there was a debate that I saw, a lot of, from Charlie Kirk, a lot of these people who are going against the ICE raids or talking about how, the policy that Trump is implementing, removing illegals, are hurting their businesses because a lot of them are hiring illegal workers. Now, these people can be from any type of background. But then they're also breaking the law. So one of his proposals, Charlie Kirk, was saying, why don't you go in to the high schools to essentially market, and of course take your kids as well. You're doing roofing. Now, how can you get these kids to learn the trade? The type of money that you can make. The type of hours, the type of benefits. That's the thing is you remove, and Trump understands this. If you remove you remove illegals all at once, a lot of companies are going to come down crumbling because companies are built on the hiring of immigrants who are hired for cheap labor. So is what he wants to implement a universal basic income? Is this like what his eventual goal is, to have everybody at the same universal basic income? So essentially what a doctor makes, a taxi driver will make. Somebody actually mentioned this in the chat before, long ago when I first started streaming, that he was a taxi driver and he was driving a doctor, and they both made about the same amount of income. Somebody in this chat So we know that this is a very destructive. Patriot Watcher said that's socialism. So we have socialistic ideas. Of course, she just said you claim yourself to be a democratic socialist. So these are the ideas that he's running on. What is limited, private property, not fully abolished. The distinctions is that major industries or resources like energy, healthcare, or transportation is typically publicly owned or collectively managed, while individuals can still own personal property like homes, clothes, small businesses. So socialism is seen as a sort of transitional stage between capitalism, which is private ownership, and communism. Zohran Mamdani's may seem nice and pretty and polished at the get-go, but will they prove to actually be good for America in a capitalist society? Because these programs shouldn't be the main. It's things like SNAP, things like WIC are to be a crutch for those who need it. But eventually you want to get out of that crutch. You don't want to stay in that crutch. So implementing the 2% of the tax on the billionaires, I mean, he thinks that there shouldn't be any billionaires. He doesn't really go into that sort of statement, but otherwise, this is against capitalism. And I do want to correct a statement, by the way, in the chat, because I saw it going by. I wasn't even going to address it, but I said like cities like California. Obviously, I mean cities like Los Angeles or San Francisco, whatever the talking about sanctuary cities. But Zohran Mamdani has packaged these ideas in with a nice little bow. And Norse, of course, I saw your chat that if you super chatted that if I would even read your comments, I have been reading your comments. But mentioning them, well, is there anything that I need to mention as to debating the points other than, as somebody said, you guys are commenting about my IQ rather than debating any of the points. But you say, what are your top 5 favorite movies? First, Limitless. This was a movie that I actually saw that wanted me to, or I wanted to pursue acting. But I honestly just, that world, that industry, I began to shift my views, my everything after I became a Christian. I started to focus on God. I started to focus on scripture, started to focus on country eventually, started to focus on my marriage, my family. But we really found ourselves in a terrible time during the Biden administration. This is where I really started to try to understand what exactly is happening. How is it so difficult to, in this economy that we live in, under the Biden administration, where our dollar is actually way less in value? My second movie would probably be I don't know. I have to think about that. But Limitless, probably my top. There's probably a couple of others. Probably some from the Avengers series. But I don't really watch movies anymore. And I'm sure there's older movies than that I can go back to. I just have to really just think about that. The Mask. With Jim Carrey. Crazy movies. You go back and you're like, wow, this was acceptable in Hollywood, because you don't see any of that in Hollywood anymore. Type of things. A comment here. True Flame. And by the way, Norse, thank you. You don't have to. I know you oppose me in a lot of the things that I say here. More with, of course, comments about my IQ or whatever. I still appreciate your wonderful gift. I still consider it a gift, even if it's somebody who doesn't really like my views or opposes my views. You decided to do that, whether it was an absolute troll or not. You still decided to do it, and that was out of your own heart. Or not. I don't know. But I still appreciate it. Because you must know that this is still going to something that is, of course, is going to my family. It's going to this channel. It's going to further what we're trying to do here is, of course, analyzing what we're seeing in America. We're focusing on American politics, of course, but things that line up with scripture as well. And I don't want to put scripture into everything. I don't want to just try to squeeze scripture here and say prophecies being, being fulfilled here. But Scripture does apply to many of these things when it comes to governments, when it comes to how things are ran. America being founded on Judeo-Christian values. The fact that God governs in the affairs of men, something that Benjamin Franklin has said, but is also written in the Scriptures. Not exactly in that manner, but that God is the one that is the one who orchestrates. He brings up kings, he raises up kings, he takes down kings. And we see people like Mamdani, we see people like Trump, we see people like Biden, where God is temporarily putting them into power for a particular purpose in order to fulfill his complete prophecy, which is the return of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, Jesus Christ. Now, whether you and I disagree on these views, I remember, by the way, it's Patriot Watcher. You say coffee was $5 to $10, $10, now 25 to 30. First of all, I don't know where you're getting coffee from, but that must be some premium coffee, because I think Starbucks still for me is around, if you get a Starbucks, say like the toppest, biggest, fast food chain, you're probably paying around $6 for a grande. You pay for, $8 for maybe a venti. But I remember when, you say 28-ounce cans. 28-ounce cans of coffee. I'm actually reminded of Carl's Jr. Their chicken sandwiches used to be, and now some select Carl's Jr.'s, they're doing, they're bringing back the $1 spicy chicken sandwich. But chicken sandwiches used to be super cheap. For a whole meal, you'd get chicken sandwich, fries, and a drink for about $5. And that was back in 2020, around 2020, 2021. We've gone a long way. But you mentioned, somebody mentions here that God, you don't think, that's also you. You say you don't think that God is putting these people in place. And my wife points out that if Starbucks, once you multiply it times 4, add pastries, and it comes out to around $50. Yeah, it gets really expensive. I mean, their pre-packaged pastries should literally not even be as expensive as they are. They're made in a factory. They're not made by hand. They should be at least, at best, not $4, not $5, but like $1 something. You guys are funny in the chat. I appreciate you guys for being here. But otherwise, we're gonna go on to here. This is Kathy Hochul, which I believe that Zohran Mamdani, who has been silent on the matter of Kathy Hochul, in the sense that a lot of people have been mentioning that where's Kathy Hochul in all this? Is she going to back him at any point? But here at this massive NYC rally, New York is not for sale. Kind of an ironic title. Yeah. So anyway, here she is. She's bringing out a whole bunch of points, but they're all, she goes on about Trump. What does this have to do about Trump? But let's hear what she has to say.
Well, then I'm in the right place. Because in so doing, electing him as our 111th mayor, we will change the course of history. And it needs to be changed. Because right now, I don't mean to take you all down to a dark place because this has been a really uplifting experience. But right now, our city and our state and our country are under attack by Donald Trump and the Republicans in Washington. I mean, they're literally not just taking a wrecking ball to the White House, they're taking a wrecking ball to our very values.
Yes, to the very values, of course, but taking a wrecking ball to the White House, why does it seem to breeze right past the Democrats that this is privately funded money for renovations of the East Wing, which there's no prominent historical memorabilia there? And we've gone over literally Obama during his term using taxpayer money to renovate the front lawn, $376 million, I think it was, far more than what Trump is spending with privately funded renovations. But they're saying that we have a government, we have an administration who's wrecking the White House. If anything, he's making it better, but he's also helping the taxpayer to save money so that they don't have to pay for presidential expenses when it comes to protection, when it comes to literally figuring out where, they need to host him at specific events, the security measures, the police that they need to get involved, the tents, the chairs, everything, the setup to get just to have an event for Trump to be at. But rather they can come to Trump. They can come to Trump and now he can they can have this all set up, this ballroom set up, and not charge the taxpayer money.
Our people and our...
So it shouldn't be about Trump. This rally, like he's in everybody's mind. That this is clear instance of what everybody calls Trump derangement syndrome. But my wife points out something to me. She says Barack Obama from 2009 to 2017 upgraded infrastructure, added solar panels, and renovated parts of the residence and family quarters to the White House. Presidents have to do this. Or presidents can do this, rather, not have to. They can.
Progress. Get this. Donald Trump literally said the shutdown is about killing Democratic priorities. Now, what are those priorities?
I'm going to comment on that in a moment. I do want to comment on Steve Watkins' comment here in the chat saying, you think he's building it not to stay in power? No, I don't think he's building it to stay in power, because this ballroom will be used for presidents even after he's gone. But apparently he's planning to vote for or run in 2028. He's got merchandise on his store. He's talking about it more. Is he able to have another 4 years in him? Maybe. He did post a meme of him running. Trump says Trump for president, goes on to 2028, then goes on to, I think, 2032. Then it keeps going. And it's just an endless video of going and counting the years. But he's trolling. Of course, he's trolling. Because everybody thinks because of his 2025 plan or the, what was it? It wasn't the 2025 plan. What was it? It was the, somebody's got a something 2025. I forget what it was. that everybody, the Democrats were for freaking out over. There's so much that Trump went through just to become president again. Project 2025. Yeah, there you go. So it was 2025. Project 2025. Basically allowing himself to be fully in control, where he's going to completely eliminate the election system and all that stuff. I could be summarizing it in the absolute worst way possible, but the Democrats were freaking out. And once he gets into power, he's going to stay into power. But I do think that these renovations are merely just a way to save taxpayer dollars in the long run and to cozy up for the next 3 years. I'm reading your guys' comments here. You say building with a comment here. It says pause game, building without the consent of the agency that maintains it. You're referring to the East Wing renovation? And so I'm hearing people saying that Trump skipped the permission or process in order to go through all of this stuff. We've got to look into that. I'm going to believe you guys just at face value, but we'll look into that. So Kathy Hochul, what she just mentioned, let's go back for a moment.
Democratic priorities.
Because of the government shutdown, we also saw another Catherine Clark, literally said that this shutdown is being utilized for leverage over the American people. She said this in an interview, and we've played the clip on last night's broadcast. But let's continue on here, because this has been the lie of the Democrats. People are saying the Republicans are lying about the shutdown, that it's all their fault. The Democrats are saying that it's all the Republicans' fault. The Republicans are saying it's the Democrats' fault because what? Health? Talking about health. Caroline Levitt went over the details concerning where the health was going to. Medicare, or rather Medicaid. I think it was Medicaid, right? She went over the immigrants who were utilizing or taking advantage of healthcare when people were saying they're not getting healthcare. But yes, when it comes to governments, Republican, Democrat, for the person who believes in scriptures, for the person who is a Christ follower, for the person who wholeheartedly walks after the scripture as best as they can, who tries to live righteously, scripture tells us that, as God says, I am not a man that should lie. God is the only one that tells the truth. So regardless of what side, Democrat, Republican, one side may have better views in your opinions, and in my opinions, one side might have better views. But it's never going to be the complete identity that any Christian should ever identify themselves with, in the sense that, yeah, you might say, well, my views lean more conservative, of course, if we're going to attach a name to it. But it seems like we're going into a culture where people of all walks of life, who do you side with? Who are you choosing? So we can put you in a box and put you on this side or on that side. Or if you're an independent or you're whatever. Part of the, you're part of the Green Party. I think it's a Green Party, right? Look, Jesus is the only one that is able to, the only one that has said this. And we know that his words have tremendous weight behind it, because he says, you're either for me or you're either against me. So we're gearing up to the points where Scripture talks about the shepherding, the separating of the sheep and the goats. We went over one of these passages that somebody was bringing up for whatever reason in Matthew 25, 36 through 40, around that. But God will separate the wheat from the chaff. Went off on a little bit of a tangent here, but the lies that are coming from the Democrats concerning the shutdown, heck, even John Fetterman, a Democrat, is blasting the Democrats that are voting against opening up the government. He is all for Americans over party. Personnel that need to be paid over party.
Now, what are those priorities? No, this gets bad. This gets bad. Killing food assistance for babies. Yeah, it really sucks. Killing money for seniors to pay their utility bills. Killing health care for New Yorkers already struggling to take care of their own lives. I mean, it even meant killing Planned Parenthood until we came in with money to keep it alive, because they don't give a damn about women and their health care and their rights to an abortion.
I'm talking about keeping a building alive or a company alive or whatever it is, but they won't keep the babies alive. They won't actually advocate for the babies in the womb. This is also another conversation that people just strongly dislike having. But if the baby inside the womb is a human being, obviously, you can't call it fetus, because fetus means baby, literally. So they'll attach a specific way of speaking, like clump of cells. But if we're just a clump of cells, then that means that no life matters. That who cares what we do, whether we kill, whether we do this or that? It doesn't matter, because we're a clump of cells. That's the argument. But educating those to say that no, we are actually all human beings that have inalienable rights. Rights given to us by our Creator, endowed by our Creator. We all have the right to life. Even so, we all have things like the right to fair trial, regardless of what kind of crime we commit. But we've seen time and time again of the corrupt judges who will release, in the case of Irina Zarutska, who this man who was on the bus behind her was released, 15 times prior? And for those who are also saying, or actually a question here that says Lucifer had a background, I would like you to elaborate a little bit more as to what you're asking in that question, but the Bible, the scriptures do talk about Satan in that who he was before the fall. I don't have my software. Where's my software here? It's weird. Okay. All right, let me see if I can bring this up for you in a moment. I'm going to keep playing this video, and I'll come up with that scripture.
They're also killing major infrastructure projects, putting tens of thousands of hard-working union members out of work. Oh, friends, it gets worse. What about the ICE agents flooding our streets as we speak? Canal Street, Queens, the Bronx, they're everywhere, and they're terrorizing innocent people.
Innocent people. And she's saying that that ICE agents are terrorizing. But when you look at the record or the background of these innocent, quote unquote, people who are either attacking the ICE agents who need to defend themselves because they have families themselves. Most certainly, if I was in that position, I would want to protect my life as by any means possible if I'm getting attacked. There's a lot of nuance to each video clip that is being shared, that is being put out there as propaganda, that is being shared for whatever the case is. But you only see bits and clips and little small sections to portray a narrative in a way that somebody wants you to see it. But when you look at the background of either some of these individuals that are being showcased and being circulated, like the man who was deported, the Maryland man who actually had a criminal record or who had a record of abuse, but some others that have records of rape or you name it. And she's saying they're innocent. It's a tactic. It's a lie. It's a tactic to get people to pull on their heartstrings. Now, this is not to say that we don't have any compassion on those who are actually attempting to flee their country for whatever sake of trouble. But there's ways to go about this. Now, mind you, a lot of these folks came through during the Biden administration. They did what was called the catch and release because this was set up during the Biden administration. They signed up to the CBP app. But what also happened is that anybody who came through the border, they had a phone. They were given a phone. They were also given money, a card that was supplied monthly for them to be able to live. And they were placed into hotels in sanctuary cities. And they were able to live like that up until they had their court hearing. Now, Jerry, you gave me an interesting idea here. I'm going to steal your idea here because that prompts me to ask a question. For a poll. Okay. Simple question. How is Trump doing in his presidency? I'd like to know. For those that are watching now, I'd like to know. We're going to let this run for a little while. Let's keep playing this clip. We're going to listen to more of these statements from Kathy Hochul.
And we have had enough. Now Donald Trump says, oh, we're going after the worst of the worst, the baddest of the bad. They're splitting up families. And let me tell you this actually happened. They took away mothers of babies who were nursing them and separated them. This is how cruel they are. Okay, how do you top that? Now, no, it continues. It's going to continue. It's all bad. Now they're going after our Attorney General Tish James. They go after Tish James, they can come after any of us. But here's what they did not count on. Here's what they did not count on. They always forget this about us. When we get punched, we fight back, and we fight back hard. We don't just fight, we win. Because time and time again, New Yorkers have been knocked down, and we get up stronger, louder, and more resilient than ever before. So I'll be fighting every day.
New York has gone through a lot. New York has gone through a lot in what we've seen with 9/11. We've seen what's being shared currently with the what's sort of going viral online is New York 2021 or 2001 rather. We will never forget to 2005 to we forgot. Why they're saying that is because of Zohran Mamdani. Now, he actually says in a clip, which I'm going to bring you over to for a moment. Now, we've been covering Zohran Mamdani like almost ad nauseum. Michelle, by the way, you say, I'm lost here. Who's the lady politician? Tell me more. So the lady that I just... Here, let me go back for a moment. This is Kathy Hochul. She's the governor of New York. She's campaigning on behalf of Zohran Mamdani. And she is going about the Trump administration. For whatever reason. She's talking about Trump. Trump is the center. This is the... Okay, if you're going to say that... If you're trying to do this campaign, it should be about New York. It should be about policies, but somehow we managed to make this all about Trump. Okay, how are we going to make New York better? How am I as governor going to support the mayor, Zohran Mamdani, who is seemingly looking like he's going to win the mayoral race? Instead, she goes on, she starts with Trump. It's ridiculous. Because they have nothing good to say. Nothing good to say.
With my partners on the same side, Andrea Stewart Cousins, and our Speaker, Carl Heastie. Give them a round of applause. But you know what? Well, we need something. Here's what we need. Oh, you're fired up. You're fired up. But the three of us can't do it alone. We need a fighter in City Hall who wakes up every day ready to punch and fight for the working people of the city, and that person is Zohran Mamdani. And this is because Trump's America runs on fear and cruelty and division. But New York, we run on hope and compassion and optimism. that never leaves us. So I say we are the state that does not back down, and I'm going to be working closely with Mayor Zohran Mamdani.
And so I do want to bring this clip in for context because of Zohran Mamdani talking about his tearful speech concerning his aunt. Michelle, you're saying thank you for explaining. I think I take it she is deciding Democrat. So she's a deciding Democrat. So she is a Democrat governor of New York. She is most certainly, just as she just said in this moment before I paused it, that she is going to fully support Zohran Mamdani. So here we go. This is Mamdani. Let me see if I can find it. Really, he's going on about this story about this uncle of the Muslim faith, or I think he says my Muslim or a Muslim uncle or Islamic uncle. I forget what he says. He says, I don't have to tell anybody that I'm Islamic, or that I'm Muslim. Rather, I'm sorry. I don't have to tell anybody that I'm Muslim. Yet, he's made it very clear that he's Muslim and that he supports the Muslims. Sure, fine. But he goes on about New York in 2001, what happened during the World Trade Centers being absolutely a horrific time in American history. And he makes it all about his aunt. Here we go.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City. I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab. I want to speak to the Muslim who works for our city. Whether they teach in our schools or walk the beat for the NYPD. New Yorkers who all make daily sacrifices.
So it goes from that his aunt did not feel safe wearing a hijab in New York City. But not about the lives that were lost, not about the American lives that were lost, but about his aunt. Makes it all about his aunt. Have we forgotten what happened in New York? Have we forgotten? We have, barely just touched the surface of all of this stuff. I mean, again, I've covered this almost ad nauseum. I think we just need to sort of move on because we're just going to have to wait and see what exactly is going to happen with this mayoral race. I do want to bring it over to former California governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. He talks about gerrymandering being around for 200 years, and this is some points that he brings up. This is on CNN, but he talks about that this is a way to... I'll just let him speak.
Joining me now.
Because of what he's been talking about this stuff. He's been going on. He's been, I would say, somewhat viral, speaking about these matters concerning California, concerning the gerrymandering, concerning what's happening in Texas. But here we go. This is CNN interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let me get the let me get to the point. see if this is around the clip. Okay, let me get there. Let me show you guys this clip.
So they're getting arrested, and here they're cheating, and they're having a war on cheating here in America with this gerrymandering. So it's really sad.
Democratic Governor Newsom was asked this week about your efforts to lobby against the measure. I want you to take a listen to what he said and then respond on the other side.
He's wrong. What we're doing is temporary, it's completely transparent, and it's democratic. This is a revolution that's going on in real time in our country. We need to wake up. Prop 50 is foundational if we're going to save this republic. So I would say to those that are opposed to it, wake up to these new realities. Spare.
But he contradicts himself. He talks about that this is important to our. Here, let me go back so we can get his own words. So I'm not taking him out of context here.
He's wrong. What we're doing is temporary, it's completely transparent, and it's democratic. This is a
democratic, but what does the flag say behind him? It says California Republic. Well, it is democratic in nature because he wants Democrats to stay in power. Newsom calling himself or sort of joking that people have been confusing him for God. Huh? Newsom, you're far from that. You're far from even godly, for that matter. Godly in the sense of you've got godly characteristics as in walking closely with the Lord, where you can clearly claim that person or say to that person, look at that person and say that this is a godly man. Far from that. But he's doing this as a retaliatory response to Texas gerrymandering in the middle of or before midterm elections.
Revolution that's going on in real time in our country. We need to wake up. Prop 50 is foundational if we're going to save this republic. So I would say to those that are opposed to it, wake up to these new realities. Spare me the moral high ground.
So I know you know this, sir, but this is a prevalent view among Democratic voters and Democratic officials. They think Republicans are blowing up all norms and standards for behavior, and they feel, therefore, they have to take extraordinary action in response. Are their concerns invalid, do you think?
Well, first of all, let me just say that it's important. This is not Governor Newsom against me or me against Governor Newsom. You know, we are friends and we get along, and he came to me and told me about this situation. And we have been working on this without attacking each other and all of that. So that's number one. Number two, I think when they say this is temporary, there is no such thing. I mean, the longest programs are government programs that are temporary. Okay, just remember that if it is a tax program or if it is the redistricting program, anything that is temporary with government is permanent. So in the year 2032, when the independent redistricting commission is supposed to come back, they're going to say, wait a minute, there's still gerrymandering going on in Texas. There's still gerrymandering going on in Ohio. There's still gerrymandering going on in Florida. We have to continue with the gerrymandering. This is what's going to happen. They will find an excuse. So therefore, I don't think it is temporary. So that's total fantasy. So the second thing is that you cannot cheat your way out of it. What they should do is, what the Democrats should do is they should outperform Trump. To me, it's all about competition creates performance. And so what they do is with the redistricting commission is that they're going to go and try to draw the district lines in such a way that they get voted in no matter if they work well or not for the American people. So the American people get cheated on this whole thing. That is really the problem here. To me, I understand that the Democrats and Republicans have to fight about this, but the ones that are not really getting anything out of this is the people of America. I think that if you want to really fight for democracy, why would you go and destroy the Constitution in California, tear it up, and go redo it, do the whole thing? So to me, it just doesn't make any sense at all, the whole thing.
As you
there was somebody that I wanted to mention a comment here because it reminded me of something. But the traditions, this has always been more of a tradition to do this during the every 10 years, which is during the census. But it's merely just tradition. And men love to hold to their tradition. And a good scripture that I want to bring out here for a moment is here in Mark, or even in Matthew. Mark says, well, did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites, as it is written, this people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain they do worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. You leave the commandment of God and hold to the tradition of men. He said to them, you have a fine way of rejecting the commandment of God in order to establish your tradition. For Moses said, honor your father and your mother, and whoever reviles father or mother must surely die. But you say, if a man tells his father or his mother, whatever you would have gained from me is Corban, that is given to God. That's what it means, Corban. Then you no longer permit him to do anything for his father or mother, thus making void the word of God by your tradition that you have handed down, and many things, such things you do. So this is something. There's something that of course is the context as to what Christ is saying for the traditions, talking about his disciples not washing their hands. They break the traditions of the elders. They don't wash their hands before they eat or when they eat. But in the sense of this census, it's like now we're doing this. We're breaking tradition. Or Texas is breaking tradition. California is all upset about it. And if California does it, all these other states are going to trigger this massive emergency response act to what Texas would do if they completely redraw the map. But these are very, very very important to understand that this is merely just tradition, and whether it's wrong or whether it's right. The fact that Gavin Newsom is going to be doing the same thing that Texas is doing, if they're going to be breaking the tradition. But making it like how Trump ran in his election, he said he's going to make it too big to rig. Too big to rig. So that even if they rigged the election again, that it would still be too big to rig. Everybody has their own views about what happened back in 2020. That is neither here nor there. We don't have to go into that in this podcast. Deadman, welcome. Thanks for joining the podcast. Appreciate that you're here. Looking Horse, you say in your comment, if Californians have not learned their lesson by now and continues to vote yes on 50, then they deserve everything that they get. Vote red to save America. Yeah, you're right. California has been on a fast decline more than ever. It's beginning to become more and more impossible to live here. So this is what we saw from this interview on CNN. And there's, of course, a couple of other things. There's just one more thing that I want to touch up on here, and this is Tyler Robinson, this update on the Tyler Robinson case or his trial. And it's not, this is not great. And New York going to be the next London. Dead man comment says. And I think you're right. It's going to really be interesting to see. And we don't know. What is this going to look like? He's running for mayor. At what point, how much power is he actually going to have to be able to implement what he wants to implement? It seems like he has the full backing of the governor of New York. But Trump has been saying that they still have to go through me. So how far will they actually be able to go before New York begins to crumble and whatever begins to happen in New York? I don't know. But let's take a look at this update from the this sort of Tyler Robinson. So here's the quote on the bottom. It says, Tyler Robinson asks for permission to wear civilian clothes in court. Now, I don't know if that statement is actually true. I thought it was his lawyers doing this to give him a fair trial so that he doesn't go in as a criminal. However, he's the one that confessed to this already. So if all evidence already points to him, of course, they want to give him this type of fair trial, but we've never seen this. I don't know. Have we seen this done in the past? I don't look into these murder trials or anything like that. But in the case of the Idaho 4 case, the guy, I forget his name, who's irrelevant, but he was wearing regular clothes up until he pleaded guilty. Spider Venom, your comment says, but if he confessed, it was because they told him he won't go to jail if he does. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to this. I'm going to end this poll. By the way, so far, we've got 56 votes in. Vote on the last moment before I end this poll. We got 56 votes of Trump, people saying that Trump is doing good in his presidency. 45% no. And Trump is still up a point, according to some CNN polling. That even despite this government shutdown, despite what people are saying that, oh, he's the first president to step away in history during a government shutdown. But Trump is not going to, he doesn't need to be there. He doesn't need to be there. He can most certainly walk away and let the Democrats and the Republicans fight it out so they can open up the government again. Get our people paid. It's non-negotiable. Let's get our people paid. I'm going to end the poll and we're going to end it at 56% say good and 44% say bad. Trump is doing good, according to this poll, overall in his presidency. Here we go. And by the way, Patriot Watcher, you're asking in your comment, what has Trump done that's amazing? I think securing the border, ending the wars, and you correct your statement, incredible. Ending the wars, securing the borders, making America first, making America strong, and removing all the woke nonsense. Jay Scott, he said, if Trump says day, TDSers say night. He said, what war did he end? So he just signed the peace. This is why he's in Malaysia. He just signed the peace deal with Cambodia and Thailand. The people say it's not necessarily fully peace, but the peace deal between Hamas and Israel, the peace deal between Iran and Israel. He's working on the peace deal in Russia and Ukraine. As he says, it's moving along, but we don't know exactly what's happening there. Gas is down. You're right. Gas is down. It's been the lowest since 2019. This $3.99 or $2.99 per gallon. This is nationwide, right? It's not going to be in you might not be seeing it in your city or in your state. California is still about, $4.50 something cents. But he's also done the war, or he's done the peace between India and Pakistan. And now he's making negotiations with the sort of tariff war that was going on with China and the US. There's so much that is happening that we'll only begin to see the fruit of the labor that is being done in the first year of his presidency. Coming up to January, we'll see exactly how that's gonna come into fruition. What are we gonna see from now till January, and from January to the rest of the 3 years? Yes, because again, Patriot Watcher, I keep saying Washer, Patriot Watcher, almost like a tongue tie. You say we're still funding Ukraine, still funding Israel. Yes, because these are deals. These are things that were happening during the Biden administration. These were wars that were inherited under the Biden administration, or from the Biden administration. You're right, boss man. Thank Biden for that. Trump inherited a lot of this nonsense because Biden clearly wasn't able to do anything to stop anybody from fighting, even with his thousands of threats to Hamas, thousands of threats to whoever, Russia. Good night, Jerry. Jerry, thank you for being here. Appreciate it, brother. But let's see what is going on with this Tyler Robinson deal here. See if he was the one asking for what they're saying exactly. And then we're going to end it here.
Let's bring in founder and president of American Frontier Strategies, Mehek Cook. Look, I understand the argument. Wearing street clothes makes it, in their argument, less likely that he would be judged by the jury like he would be if he was in jail garb. Should the judge grant that request, Mehek?
Todd, I think this is a very interesting and important constitutional question today, because what the defense is arguing is exactly what you said, that the minute you see somebody in jail clothing, you're immediately going to think guilty. And they're actually citing the Kohlberg case where the judge did allow Brian Kohlberg to wear street clothes. This is different, though, because the judge actually has to balance security versus fairness. The Constitution guarantees Americans the presumption of innocence. But here's the issue today. We're facing Tyler Robinson and a security watch, and the prosecution, now these documents are sealed, but we know that the prosecution's clearly arguing that he's a security threat and he should be in shackle and in jail clothing. And there is precedent for this. The Supreme Court has said if there's an essential state interest, which security is, then the judge is really going to have to weigh both fairness and state security. And I think this constitutional question will be compelling. The way he answers it is going to be a massive, massive, interesting constitutional issue that will ripple into other cases as well.
And also, if you're the prosecution, I think you need to think about how hard you fight this, because you never want something like what the guy's wearing in court to potentially hurt your case, even if you win, when defense appeals. I think they need to be very, very cautious about that, because they do have more or less an airtight case. You don't want the guy's clothes to ruin any of that. Meantime, Mehek, I got to get your thoughts on this. Everybody is talking about this. Over 30 people, including NBA coaches and players, mafia members even, arrested as part of a massive sports betting investigation. Let's take a listen to FBI.
So, as they move on from this NBA, instance of gambling or illegal gambling probe. We covered that in the last podcast, but I do want to go over to one of Charlie Kirk's interviews when it comes to his conversation with, I forget who it was, concerning the protection of a murderer. How is it not here? Yeah, I'm probably gonna have a lot of trouble finding this because for whatever reason I cannot see the original video. Let's see if I can find it here. For whatever reason, it's not showing me everything. Okay, anyway, despite this information that I'm trying to find here. Okay, yeah, we'll have to find it. I've covered it on this podcast more recently, but he's talking about if somebody like Brian Koberger, or in the case of Tyler Robinson, you keep them alive, you're actually what are the words here? Maybe somebody can help me out here. Something along the lines of you're disrespecting the victim in some of that sort of language there. Let's see if we can find it. For now, we're just going to. Yeah, there's still a lot that is happening that we still haven't even covered here. But otherwise, guys, I want to thank you so much for being here on this podcast. There has been a lot of stuff that we've covered. And of course, ad nauseum, as I've said before, with Zohran Mamdani and what's happening in New York, what's happening in California, those who are voting for Prop 50, really think it through, really consider it. If you like your voice being heard, you want to still have a voice, vote no. But if you want all that gone, vote yes. We can agree to disagree on these issues, and we can come to our own conclusions. But please go and do the research yourself, and we'll most certainly try to talk about this more at length before November the 1st, which is for those who live in California, for those who care about what's happening in California. We're going to be covering that a little bit more. But otherwise, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. God bless.